Right guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. In this one I'm just going to be showing you how to change the bearings in your DT Swiss Campagnolo 3-pull Freehub body. So let's go ahead, let's run through the steps. So we have the DT Swiss Campagnolo Freehub body. This is a 3-pull Freehub body, as you can see, not a ratchet one. So first thing you need to do is remove the bearing in the lock ring end just there. So what you want to do is there's a collar between the two bearings down in there. You see that. So what you want to do is offset that collar. Now if it's tight to move, don't just stab something like a screwdriver in there and push it, because you might damage the collar itself. So what you want to do is just use the handle end of a small screwdriver and just put it in and then move it like that. So as you can see, it off centers it. So when it's off center, that means you can get to the bearing down and through the pull end here, down through there. So if you get a punch, and then what you're looking to do is the punch goes down in there like that and then rests on the edge, and it's only a small edge there that you can see, so that just rests on there like that. So that's what you're after doing or achieving, is that. So let's go ahead, let's get that bearing out. So what I've got here is a block of wood on a hard surface. Now if you've got a bench, a substantial bench, then just put a block of wood on the bench and use that. I'm just showing you on the floor like this, so you don't need any special tools to do it with at all. So once you've, like I said, you move that collar over just so you can get a punch rested on it. So what you do is just give it a tap, just hold it in place like that, just give it a tap like that, and then move across, and the collar will go completely slack in there once you've hit it a couple of times. So move it across to the other side, then just move it around like that. Then you find the bearing just comes out. There's the bearing, there's the collar in between, the spacer in between them, like that. So that's those two bits. Now then what you can do, you can see the bearing down in the bottom there. So what you need for that, to get that out, is a pair of straight circlip pliers like that, because there's a circlip on top of that bearing in there that's holding it in. So you might have to wipe out any old grease that's in there so you can see that circlip properly, so you can locate the pliers into the two holes in it. So there's two holes down in there, so we get that, we'll get them located in there. So you get them located, squeeze it together, and then remove the clip, then get hold of it before you let go, otherwise the clip will go flying off and you'll lose it. So there's the snap ring circlip in the bottom. So then once you remove that, then you see the bearing down in there. So what you can do is put your Freehub down, face down like that on the lock ring end, and then using a 12mm socket, and you could have a short socket with an extension on it as well if you haven't got a longer one like this. It's a 12mm, so you put that in there like that. So you rest that in there, so it's on the bearing in there, then you knock it down like that, and then once it's gone down inside the Freehub, you'll see you need to knock it past where the bearing was in lock ring end. So once it's gone down, just knock it in place so it's sitting there, and then carry on, put your socket down through again like that, then carry on knocking it out. And there you have the bearing in the bottom. So what you want to do is clean up inside your Freehub body there, any old grease and dirt that's in there, and then we'll go ahead, we'll put a couple of new bearings in. So after you've cleaned up the inside of the Freehub body, what you want to do is get some grease and just put down in the bottom there, where the lower bearing's going to sit. So you get that bit of grease around in there, and then with your bearing, what we'll do is put some grease around it like that, and then what we'll do is we'll just put some grease around where inside the actual Freehub body, just wipe a bit around inside there, because it needs to slide through and down into the bottom. So what you want to do is get yourself some quality bearings. Don't use any cheap ones because they just won't last. I'll put the sizes for them down in the description of the two bearings that you need. So what you want to do is sit that bearing in there like so. What you can do is just sit it in place like that, and just make sure it's going in square when you're hitting in. Don't hit it in at an angle at all. So to put that in, what you want is a 18mm socket to put it in with. So if you just locate that over the top of the bearing, never hit where the seal is on the bearing, you'll damage it before you put it in. And this is the same size as the bearing, the outside of the bearing. So you just hold it in place like that and just gently tap it round, making sure, like I said, that it's not going in crooked. What'll happen is this one needs to go down into the bottom, so you'll hit it down through and it will go inside the Freehub like that. So it's dropped down inside like that. So what you want to do then is make sure you locate it in the bottom. Just make sure it's sitting level in the bottom there, because it needs to go into the seat in the bottom. So what you want to do is, again, using the same socket, if you just locate it down through, the socket will drop through as it was like that. So just give it a few taps in there like that, just to make sure that it's seated properly. Make sure it's square in there. Then you can go carry on, just tap it into position. Say, you can hear the tone change when it hits the bottom. It doesn't take a lot to put in. See, that's all in there now. Down in the bottom, you spin it on your finger like that. So then what you need to do is put some grease over, let's put a smear over the face of it, over the seal itself, just to help keep the water out. Put some grease over there like that, and then with your snap ring circlip, what you need to do is locate that on your pliers like that, and squeeze it up and drop it into, and you squeeze it together and then locate it, we'll see, down in the bottom on top of that bearing where it came from. You squeeze it up, put it all the way down into the bottom, let go of it, making sure that it's actually in place in there. When you squeeze it up, it's got to sit in there, there's a groove in there what it sits into. So if it's not in there, then you just have to get it on it again, squeeze it together, and just make sure that it is in that little groove above the bearing itself. And then we can move on to putting the top bearing in and the spacer. So with the spacer, I'll just put some grease on it, on the end of it there. Doesn't matter which end, like that. And I'll just put an additional amount over the circlip you just put in, and that just helps when you lower this collar in there, spacer, you can lower it down and just stick it in place down in the bottom, so it's in line exactly with that bearing in the bottom. So you want it in there like that, so it's in line. And then what you do, just get your top bearing. On the side you're not going to see that goes inside the Freehub, just put some grease over the face of the seal that you're not going to see. Like that. Just keep the moisture out of it. And then we just put a little bit round the outside of the bearing before we put it in. Then we'll just drop it in place there, so it's just sat there like that. Then again, just push it in with your fingers slightly. Just make sure it's sitting in there square. And then again with your 18mm socket, same as you had earlier, just put that over it again. There's the top bearing installed there, so you can check that it spins okay. And then when you go to put it back on the bike, just make sure that the spacer in the middle is in line with the two bearings, because when you go to slide it back on your axle, if it's not dead in line, then you'll struggle to get it back over the axle itself. And always grease the axle and put some grease down in between here before you slide it on, to save it getting stuck on there at a later date. If you found the video helpful, give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel for more cycle related content. Till next one, ride safe and I'll see you then.